Now, Milton and Dante have a fair amount of cold and ice in the abyss, and now and again you'll spot a cinematic hell that uses both as well. For example, in the 1970 musical version of A Christmas Carol, Scrooge, who's played by Albert Finney, tumbles into a red-hot hell which is made of bright red rock, which is burning him to the touch. But he's made the chief clerk to Lucifer himself, and he's showed into his office, and it's below freezing. "You'll be the only one in hell who's chilly," says Alec Guinness as he closes the door over. However, it's the fire and not the ice that filmmakers really have latched onto. Like when Disney did their own version of A Christmas Carol, Scrooge McDuck tumbles into his very deep grave plot and falls through his coffin, which turns out to be a doorway to the abyss below, and it's signified by fire. In fact, when you tour the cinematic hells, you'll quickly see that the majority don't only involve fire, but they frequently use fire as a visual shorthand to signify the presence of the underworld. You catch this effect often in films that only want to give you a glimpse of hell rather than a full-blown and expensive walk through it. And it's fire that gives the audiences the clearest and the quickest and frankly most budget-friendly symbol of hell's presence. In the second installment of Christopher Walken's Violent Angels series, The Prophecy, for example, we see cracks in the road where fire breaks through. The character is crawling up at a clear breakout of hell itself. Or in the priest versus demon horror The Unholy from 1988, we get similar glimpses of the fiery world beyond. Sam Raimi's Drag Me to Hell from 2009 is a particularly energetic example where a woman falls onto train tracks only to have them open up in a burst of stone, fire and flailing arms. Now, quite how hell manages to get so close to the surface in these movies is anybody's guess, but the primary signal that hell is present is the fire. Without it, the viewers wouldn't be sure what exactly is happening to the character, but with it, we know beyond doubt what the director is trying to signify, what he's getting at. Films sometimes even hold the fire back to trick the audience that they're not in hell, even though they actually are. In 1972, the Amicus film Tales from the Crypt, the unfortunate protagonists are shuffling through the corridors of a dim stone catacomb, where we figure it's somewhere on Earth, and yet when it's finally revealed that the place is hell itself, the signifier kicks in. A sharp-suited sinner falls into the lake of fire. Pretty much the same deal happens in the updated version, Tales from the Hood in 1995, where the big hell reveal isn't just a cue for belching fire, but also a character to sprout horns and a satanic forked tongue. There's no prizes for subtlety there. Other films like Event Horizon, Constantine, or the Japanese horror movies Jojoko, and many others do present interesting and varied visions of hell. But flames are frequently the common symbol threaded through many. So much so, in fact, that according to the apocalyptic Schwarzenegger thriller End of Days from 1999, Satan doesn't just live in hellfire, he brings it to earth in his bladder. In one scene, the devil, played by Gabriel Byrne, takes a leak in the street and he flicks a cigarette into the gathering fluid. Boom! Turns out that even Satan's urine is made of petrol. There's a couple of other features from Sam Raimi's Drag Me to Hell that are worth some reflection and comment. For a start, for many people, the idea of hell, be that cultural or fictional or real in fact, is that maybe we could wake up into it post-mortem, or we might fall into an abyss when death comes, a la Scrooge McDuck. But in Raimi's film, the entire rationale behind that is that the demons literally come up and stalk, terrorize, and actively pull people down to the pit. We get a similar approach in the 1990 paranormal romance film Ghost. The film was a smash hit, and it had a sort of spectral romance, the idea that our loved ones would live on in benevolent ways, and we might even get a sneaky cuddle while we make a soft porn clay pot. The film is a sort of Hollywood riff on the famous poem by Henry Scott Holland that's read at many, many funerals. "Death is nothing at all," Holland says. "I have only slipped away to the next room." Patrick Swayze is one of the lucky ones who really slips to the next room because apparently he's a pretty nice guy and he gets to do that. But this heartstring-pulling new age story paints a surprisingly bleak and traditionalist view of what awaits the so-called morally suspect. The bad characters in Ghost get dragged away squealing by animated screaming shadow characters until they're absorbed into the unrelenting darkness of hell. Now, this idea of being physically pulled into the inferno crops up in Michelangelo's fresco, The Last Judgment, in that men are being literally dragged down to hell even by their testicles. It's not a surprise that this painting caused raised eyebrows and shocked coughs when it was first unveiled in the Sistine Chapel in the Vatican City. Some of them at the time called the nudity disgraceful, though they appear to have had very few objections to the demons dragging people away bit. Another interesting example that Raimi pulls in Drag Me to Hell is that the woman being dragged isn't just changing physical location, she's changing physical appearance as well. As she's pulled down in a frenzy of CGI, she's transformed into something horrible and ghoulish, which is actually not that common in the classical depictions of the movie Hell. Dante may well have had some monstrous human hybrids in his poem, but often in art and movies, the humans remain human down there. In Prom Night 3, The Last Kiss, for example, from 1990, we catch a pretty underwhelming vision of hell. It looks more like the corridor of an underground car park lit with pink lights and hanging fake snakes with half-naked ladies dancing forever to 50s rock and roll. Admittedly, they all look pretty exhausted and ticked off with their plight, but crucially, they still look like people. They are victims, and they look like human victims. It's not a big deal, by the way. In Prom Night Hell, it's absolutely easy to escape from the place. Mary Lou, the killer of the franchise, manages to break out by simply filing her thin little chain off and springing back up into the world while laughing. But again, she looks pretty human. Just as an aside, Prom Night isn't the only movie hell that's easy to escape from. In 1994, a film called Dark Angel: The Ascent showed a bored and disillusioned female demon deciding that she'd rather hang out with us humans on Earth, and so she ascends and escapes hell, and all she does is simply pop up out of a manhole cover. But getting back to this idea of humans remaining human in hell, it's important to mention the nightmarish hell visions of the late medieval artist Hieronymus Bosch. Glance across his most ambitious work, the astonishing and still really disturbing Garden of Earthly Delights, and you'll find a veritable Where's Wally of depravity. Here, naked sinners have flutes rammed in their rectums, while others are bodily suspended through the strings of an eternally playing harp. Around them, the demons are grotesque human-animal hybrids devouring and humiliating them, but crucially the humans stay human from what we can see. We catch some of the flavour of Bosch's hell, by the way, in the film Häxan, Witchcraft Through the Ages, the 1922 Swedish-Danish film that was presented as a documentary but used dramatised scenes of horror. For their depiction of hell, we see a frantic mini puppet show of demons torturing the damned forever in flames. They're naked, they're not having a very pleasant time, but they still look pretty human as well. Hell is often presented as having some sort of malevolent master in charge of it, and the cinematic depictions of the god of the abyss, well, I guess usually Satan himself or Lucifer, as he's often referred to in films, varies from film to film. The comedy genre, for example, delights in stereotyping, so it's not a shock to see that in things like The Simpsons or South Park the movie, we get a very standard image of a horned Lucifer, albeit with some extra backstory. In the South Park hell, for example, Satan's the gay lover of Saddam Hussein. Or in Adam Sandler's Little Nicky, Lucifer is a suave but still horned Harvey Keitel who's got the daily task of shoving a pineapple up Hitler's anus. Oh, and Hitler gets to choose the pineapple every day. But we get the more scary images of the devil in hell in some unexpected places. For example, the animated film All Dogs Go to Heaven from 1989 has a dream sequence which suggests that the title might not always be true. Charlie, a nice upstanding dog, has a terrible nightmare of being sucked into Satan's inferno, where he's torn and chewed by little dog demons, and the leader of hell is this gigantic canine satanic monster. Scroll through a few internet forums and you'll find viewers who were traumatized by this scene when they were children. So when we see Satan present in hell in cinema, he's either a figure of fun or he's a frightening image of rage and immortal hate, which is quite different from how he's presented in Dante's The Divine Comedy. In that, we see a three-faced Satan trapped in the core of hell, which isn't hot but cold. He's locked in ice while chewing on three famous sinners in each of his three mouths. And one creepy and almost sympathetic detail, Satan is weeping, along with the rest of the damned. He's weeping from all six of his eyes. We don't often get that image in the cinema hell.